He didn't want a wife. He wanted revenge. And I was the bullet in his barrel. It started with a letter, written in reply to one I'd sent weeks earlier. I'd answered a notice tacked up in the mail office. Not an ad exactly, more like a plea stitched with pride. I wrote back with a careful hand, lying just enough to sound marriageable, but not desperate. The reply came folded into a copy of the Kansas Sentinel, the ink smudged from someone's careless fingers. Strong arms, quiet mouth, must not ask questions, Montana territory, train fare enclosed, come alone, E sharp. I read it by candlelight in the back room of the boarding house, surrounded by laundry that wasn't mine, and a silence that had grown heavier since Mama died. The saloon girls downstairs giggled over card games. One knocked on my door, asking if I would attend the dance night. I told her no. I nearly threw the paper in the stove, but I didn't. Instead, I folded it carefully and tucked it into my pocket. I didn't believe in fate, but I believed in last chances, and this one smelled like gunpowder and grit. The train ticket was tucked into a plain envelope with no seal, no handwriting, just the same clipped type as the letter. There was no photograph, no ring, just the name E sharp and the destination, Black Ash Gulch. They say a woman shouldn't travel alone, but I'd already buried Mama, sold off her belongings, and outlived the sheriff's patience. So I packed my belongings. Just one extra shift, a cracked mirror, and a peppermint tin with my Mama's silver locket I'd never told anyone about. The train whistled like a preacher with bad news. Inside, it smelled of tobacco and babies with colic. I took the corner seat, pressed my cheek to the glass, and hummed off key, like always. Mama used to say, I did it in my sleep, back when the fever hit. The man across from me flinched. Good. My boots were too tight, my past too loud. I was tired of being watched and never seen. I'd imagined what he'd look like, Mr. E. Sharp, tall, stern, maybe missing a tooth, probably desperate. But I hadn't imagined two men waiting. One wore a Sunday coat and a sweaty grin, held a bunch of wilted daisies like they might hide his twitchy eyes. The other, broad, unshaven, holding a shotgun like it belonged in his hands. I stepped off that train, dirt clinging to my hem like regret. My boots, traded for my only good shawl from the saloon cook, pinched my heels raw. That's when the barrel lifted slightly. You here? He growled. I blinked. I don't know. Am I? He didn't laugh. Instead, he turned that gun to the man beside him, the one who looked like he'd swallowed a rattlesnake. She's mine now. You stole from me. This is payback. The brother, whose name I'd later learn was Edward, stepped forward with shaking hands and a cracking voice. You're not thinking straight, Eli. She answered my letter. That makes her mine. Eli's voice was low, deadly calm. You sent that letter, but I'm a Sharp too, and she came for an E. That's close enough for me. He glanced in my direction as I started backing away. Edward looked at me desperate, like I might choose him and still go quietly. We can still work this out. She doesn't know you. She doesn't know you either, Eli snapped. But she will! Edward moved a step, and Eli's shotgun came up faster than breath. Then, in one wild blur, Eli marched forward, grabbed me around the waist like I weighed nothing, and slung me over his shoulder. I kicked, I screamed, cursed him 6 different ways, and swung my satchel like a frying pan. Didn't matter. Put her down, Edward shouted. Eli didn't. He backed toward the horse, shotgun still raised in one arm, his grip on me iron tight. The townsfolk just stared, stunned. Edward's mouth opened, closed, then opened again, like a trout flopping on a riverbank. Eli flung me into the saddle like he was chucking corn sacks. I almost tumbled off, but caught the saddle horn just in time. Then he mounted behind me, kicked once, and we were gone. The last thing I saw over my shoulder was Edward's Sunday coat flapping in the dust and his face slack with disbelief. And that's how I became a bride, kicking, cussing, and riding into nowhere. They called it a wedding. Me in my only dress, covered in mud and grime. He was in pants I felt would stand up on their own if he dared take them off. The preacher muttered fast and skipped the part about love. I never gave my real name. Maggie, I muttered when asked. Afterwards, we rode hard for an hour, the sun setting behind us. I felt calm, like someone else was going through the motions for me. Too much had happened to be scared of this bully. He was silent, the shotgun between us like a second chaperone. I knew better than to question him by the look on his face. We finally slowed as we wound into a valley overgrown with scrub and pine. There was my new home, a sagging cabin between two bluffs. There were no cattle, no fields, just a man with a gun and a past he wouldn't name. It wasn't until days later that I heard it from a trapper passing through. Eli Sharp used to build bridges for the army, not the kind that crossed rivers, but the kind that held under fire. Timber spans lashed together in storms, crossings that saved lives. They said he vanished after the war. Some thought he died, others whispered desertion or something worse. He never mentioned it, never explained. But every tool in that cabin was sharp. The shotgun stayed close, the silence closer. His cabin leaned sideways, like it had lost an argument with the wind. No curtains, no bed big enough for two. But every morning, something changed. A chair was repaired, a door patched, coffee waiting, bitter as old sin, but hot. He never said my name. I never asked for his story. But some nights, he watched me hum by the fire, and his eyes softened like a match about to go out. One morning, I was gathering kindling near the back fence when I heard a sharp hiss, like the air had teeth. I turned just in time to see it, a rattlesnake coiled beside my boot, ready to strike. Before I could scream, Eli tackled me hard, one arm around my waist, the other grabbing the rifle from where it leaned by the fence. We landed in a heap, his chest against mine, his breath loud in my ear. He hesitated, just long enough for me to feel the warmth of his breath, the press of his chest, the rattle of death coiled inches from my boot. A flicker of Mama's voice echoed in my head, soft and strange. "Freeze, girl. Don't blink." Then he fired once. The snake's head split clean. We didn't move. His hand still gripped my ribs like I might vanish. My heart pounded like hooves on dry earth. When he finally pulled back, he didn't say a word. Just helped me up, brushed the leaves from my sleeve, and walked away like nothing had happened. But that night, he washed his face and spat on his hands before combing his fingers through his hair. And I didn't hum for once. The next morning, I found him at the chopping block, splitting logs like they'd wronged him. I brought coffee without a word, but the silence felt different, like a door cracked enough to let in air. He didn't look at me when he said, "What's your name?" "Your real one." I hesitated, my mouth opened, then shut. "Lilly," I said quietly, "not Maggie, like on the marriage paper." He didn't flinch, just nodded once. And that's when it hit me, I hadn't meant to tell him. But I had. The truth, like a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. He looked up from the log, finally meeting my eyes. "Lilly suits you." And then he went back to splitting wood. That night, he sat a little longer by the fire before rolling out his bedding in the corner of the room. One night, lightning cracked, and I curled by the bed like a child. He found me there, shivering, whispering a song Mama used to sing. He didn't touch me, just dropped a blanket around my shoulders and sat nearby. "You hum like a drunk fiddle," he said. "It keeps the voices away," I said. "What do they say?" "Run, hide, bleed," I answered, then hesitated. Same things they said the night Mama died. They said the same things when the lawman shut the door and told me to forget. He didn't call me crazy, just sat closer. The story spilled out slowly after that. Edward didn't stay gone. It was late autumn when he rode up again, drunk and spitting mud, claiming he had a right to speak to me. Eli met him at the gate. "I told you once," Eli said, That was your only warning. Edward tipped his hat to me, eyes dark. You know this ain't legal, Maggie. He never signed anything. You're not married. Not really. I chose, I said. You just didn't like what I picked. He left eventually, but not before muttering something about coming back with papers. Eli didn't say much afterwards, but he added a second lock to the door. And I started sleeping with my boots beside the bed. I pieced the story together slowly, a dropped name, a look held too long, and one night when he said too much into a glass of whiskey. Years ago, while Eli was off fighting in Colorado, his brother Edward married the woman Eli had intended to wed. She died before Eli returned. Childbirth, they said. The baby, too. He never blamed her, but he never forgave Edward. When the letter arrived, I assumed it was honest. The name signed at the bottom was E. Sharp, just an initial, like many men used back then. But it wasn't Eli who sent it. It was Edward. Turns out both brothers shared the same first initial. That's all I had to go on. He thought using the name Sharp might carry more weight if it wasn't his alone, or maybe he didn't think I'd notice. But Eli noticed. Somehow he saw the letter before Edward could intercept it, and he knew. Knew his brother was about to steal another life that didn't belong to him. That's the letter I answered. That's the train I boarded. You were never meant to be mine, Eli said one night as I folded my shift. But I couldn't watch him take you too. A cruel joke from a man who thought redemption came through replacement. Weeks passed. Like a stone, I began to fit in, learning to settle in a riverbed quietly without asking permission. I fixed the sagging porch step with a piece of fallen log, repaired the torn curtain with an old shirt hem, boiled coffee over the fire, and scrubbed dishes with grit and ash. I didn't ask for thanks, and he didn't offer it, but the silence began to soften, and maybe something in me softened too. I noticed how he moved, quiet, careful, like every motion was considered. I started waiting for the sound of his boots at the door, even when I pretended I wasn't. Some nights, I'd catch him glancing at me like he was trying to memorize the shape of something he wasn't allowed to keep. And part of me wished he would. Then came the storm. But that wasn't the only one. It was just on dusk. Eli was away somewhere, and I had just returned to the cabin with a bundle of kindling. Out of nowhere, a man appeared near the clearing, calling out. I opened the door warily. He had a slick smile, rusted spurs, and the kind of eyes that never stay still. One hand hovered near his belt, fingers twitching like he was reaching for something. Just some food, missus, he muttered, stepping closer, boots grinding the dirt like teeth. My pulse kicked. I kept my tone level. Wait there. Instead, he stepped closer. Then he reached. I didn't think, I moved. I kicked his shin hard, felt the crunch, then spun for the rifle by the hearth. My hands knew what to do even if my mind hadn't caught up. I cocked it with a snap that split the air. One more step, I said, dead calm, the barrel trained on his chest. And I'll leave you with one less rib. He paused, eyes flicking to the doorway. You ain't serious, he said. I took one deliberate step forward. Try me. He backed out slowly, then bolted. I followed him to the doorway, aimed, and fired. His hat went sailing, a clean shot, a warning. Eli came hurrying through the bush, stopping short when he saw me. Even from a distance, I saw the look on his face. Do you ever miss? He asked. Never, I told him. He raised an eyebrow just slightly. I caught the flicker in his eyes, part respect, part surprise, and felt something warm twist low in my gut. It wasn't just pride. It was the feeling of being seen, and maybe finally believed. That night the storm rolled in, a rare downpour, wild and sudden. The roof leaked, and the barn door tore loose in the wind. Without thinking, I grabbed his coat and ran out into the rain. He was already in the mud, wrestling the door against the wind. Get inside, he yelled. I've handled worse than water, I shouted back. Together, soaked to the bone, we dragged the door shut and braced it with a beam. He was breathing hard, eyes wide like he couldn't believe I was still beside him. Later, dripping on the cabin floor, he handed me a towel and said, "You're not what I expected." I smiled through chattering teeth. "Neither are you." He started whistling. Later that week, he asked if I wanted to ride out with him to check the traps along the creek. I said yes without thinking. The ride was quiet. Down by the river, the trees were shedding leaves, and the water ran cold and quick. He showed me how to tie a line to a willow branch and drop it just right. I rolled up my sleeves and caught 3 fish before he caught one. He raised an eyebrow. I smirked. Later, we washed in the shallows, clothes on, boots off. He waded in first, shivering. I followed, laughing once, which surprised us both. He glanced away as I scrubbed the dirt from my arms, but his ears reddened. I felt him watching me in the water's reflection. On the bank, drying off, he offered me his shirt. I took it. He didn't ask for it back. That evening, he carved my name into the edge of the table. It wasn't fancy, just 5 letters and a rough flower. One afternoon, he left his rifle propped against the porch while working the fence line. A crow landed on a fence post, cawing loud enough to wake the dead. Without thinking, I picked up the gun, leveled it, and shot the bird clean off the post. He turned slowly, just watched me. "You shoot like a soldier," he said. I shrugged. "Papa taught me, before he got shot for teaching the wrong people." He didn't ask who. A few nights before winter set in, I found a bundle tucked under my side of the table. It was wrapped in oilcloth and tied with a string. Inside was a carved wooden sparrow, sanded smooth, and the word Lilly on one side. I held it for a long time. When I looked up, he was at the door watching. "I didn't carve it to be pretty," he said. "I know," I said. "That's why I'll keep it." He never said the word love. He just stayed. But one night, just before the first snow, I found him sitting on the porch, eyes fixed on the tree line. He didn't speak, just holding a cup of coffee and waiting until I sat beside him. "I don't dream much anymore," he said. "Is that good?" I asked. "Used to be. Now it's quiet in my head, since you came." I looked down at the chipped mug, then up at the stars. "Quiet can be good," I said, "as long as it's not empty." He nodded. "It's not." The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It felt like breath, like space made for 2. And so I stayed, not because I had to, because I wanted to. Thank you for listening to Mail Order Bride, Shotgun Wedding, here at Timeless Tales by Anna. Some love stories aren't wrapped in lace or sealed with a kiss. Some come with mud on the hem, smoke in the air, and a heart that chooses to stay, even when it never meant to feel. If Lily and Eli's journey left a mark on you, let us know in the comments. And if you believe love can grow in even the roughest soil, you'll find more stories like this in our playlist. Tales of fierce women, quiet men, and the kind of romance that leaves a scar and a smile. Until next time, stay strong, stay soft, and never underestimate what a broken heart might still build.